Chuck Akre owns 21 stocks in his portfolio worth $13.3 billion. In this video, we're covering his top 10 biggest positions, including one that doesn't show on his normal filings. Starting with number 10, Costar. Akre is one of just 3 super investors who owns Costar. He has the biggest position, with it being 5.7% of his portfolio, and he added 21% in the last quarter. Costar has been in Akre's portfolio since the fourth quarter of 2019, and since then he's been adding for the past year straight. It's not a surprise, Costar has been a long-term compounder in its history, and they beat the market in the past decade. Costar is one of the top real estate data companies and operates a number of real estate sites, including LoopNet, Apartments.com, and BizBuySell. As things have taken off in the real estate market since 2020, Costar has performed well. Their numbers have climbed steadily, and they've added around $5 billion to their balance sheet. In its past, Costar has grown frequently by making acquisitions, and that's why they've diluted shareholders by almost as much as 10% in 4 of the past 10 years. Right now, Costar is a $32 billion market cap that trades just $9 above its 52-week high. The company's performed well in the past, and it may have a bright future. Today, a Guru Focus value comes in at $92 per share, up $13 from their current stock price. However, the numbers look like there's a slight 6% downside based on their cash flows. Analysts are more bullish than either of these, with a 24% upside and a $98 price target. Chuck Akre is a long-term value investor who founded Akre Capital Management in 1989. He coined the 3-legged stool investing approach that analyzes strong business models, healthy rates of return, and reinvestment opportunities. Akre invests in a small number of stocks that he believes to be exceptional businesses. His portfolio has significant holdings in high-performing stocks that demonstrate long-term growth potential and stability. Number 9 in Akre's portfolio is Brookfield Corporation. Together, 5 super investors own the business, and this is led by a 17.5% position from Josh Tarasoff. Brookfield makes up 6.8% of Akre's portfolio, and he added to it slightly in the last quarter. Brookfield Corp is a private equity company that has a $77.7 billion market cap today. It trades just $3 below its 52-week high. Almost all the companies we'll look at have historically performed well. Brookfield stock is up by more than 10 times since the global financial crisis. Brookfield CEO Bruce Flatts is regarded as a great capital allocator in the industry. The company's seen some massive growth in the past decade, with their sales up more than 5 times over this period. At the same time, the company's investing in more and more fixed assets, and they increase their debt at corresponding rates. Recently, after big shareholder dilution in 2019 and in 2021, Brookfield has started buying back shares in the past couple of years. While the company focuses mainly on premier assets, today a GF value comes in at $42 per share, which is $5 below their current stock price. Next, at number 8 in Akre's portfolio, we have Visa. Visa is one of the most popular stocks among super investors, with 22 of them owning it today. This is led by Chris Hone, Altarock Partners, and Chuck Akre, who has 7.6% of his portfolio in the stock. Visa is the $552 billion credit card payments giant that's trading just $5 below its 52-week high. From when the company went public during the global financial crisis, Visa's up more than 25 times. Visa and its closest peer Mastercard, which we'll see later in Akre's portfolio, are well regarded as the rails of the modern financial system, especially in the United States. Because of this, it's no surprise that the company has steadily and stably marched upward. They also earn very attractive returns on capital in almost all of these years. In addition to this, Visa steadily bought back shares, decreasing this from $2.6 billion in 2012 down to just $2 billion today. Visa's also a dividend growth stock, growing these 16 years in a row. Last year, they increased their dividend by 15.5%. Coupled with their share buybacks, they have an attractive 3.3% shareholder yield right now. Based on its historical valuations, Visa looks to be around fairly valued. Indeed, a GF value for the company comes in at $288 per share. Still, despite the business's quality, there could be some hype reflected in its stock price of nearly 30 times earnings. Based on their cash flows, it looks like the company could have as much as a 27% downside. Analysts aren't deterred and are more bullish on the company with a $314 target price. This gives Visa around a 10% upside today. Roper Technologies is Chuck Akre's 7th biggest position, and he trimmed this just very slightly in the last quarter. He has 7.7% of his portfolio invested in the company, and in total, only 3 super investors own Roper. Roper's a $58 billion company trading just $24 below its 52-week high. Like the last stock, Visa, Roper Technologies is a dividend growth stock, and they're a dividend aristocrat. They've grown their dividends 32 years in a row and increased these by nearly 10% last year alone. Roper acquires asset-light and cash-flowing software and tech companies, and it's performed extremely well, especially in the past 20 years. The company added a lot of debt in 2020, and while they performed strongly and this generally trends upward, it hasn't been as steady as some of the other companies we've looked at. Their returns on capital, again because of a lot of these acquisitions, aren't as good as something like Visa either. From some of these measures and their cash flows, Roper's valuations may be stretched today. This is why their cash flows look like they're giving the company a 36% downside. Analysts are more bullish based on the quality of companies Roper owns. They have a $630 target price, giving it a 14% upside. Roper should be a steady and predictable company going forward, and that's why they have a $575 GF value. Stock number 6 in Akre's portfolio is O'Reilly Automotive. In total, 3 super investors own the company, and this is led by Akre, who has an 8.9% position. He trimmed it very slightly in the last quarter. O'Reilly's a $64 billion specialty automotive parts retailer. Today, they trade $50 below their 52-week high. That's up nearly $300 from their 52-week low. No surprise, O'Reilly's performed phenomenally in their history, especially since the mid-2000s. The company has marched steadily upward in the past decade, and they've earned very high returns on capital. Keep in mind, though, they have added on a lot of debt in recent years, increasing this by more than 4 times just from 8 years ago. At the same time, it's a great sight to see that O'Reilly has steadily bought back their shares. They repurchased 11% of their shares in 2012 and reduced them from 13 million down to only 59 million today. O'Reilly looks like it could be trading toward the higher end of some of these valuations, but overall, it's about fair. That's about what their GF value turns out to be at $1,050 per share. Analysts are a little more bullish on the company with a 7% upside and an $1,190 target price. Before we get to our top 5, if you're enjoying the video, you can get even more fair value content absolutely free over on our Patreon. If you want to support the channel, you can do so there or become a channel member to help make even more awesome videos like this one. Stock number 5 in Akre's portfolio is American Tower Corp. This is actually a real estate investment trust or a REIT. One of the very few that you'll see in any super investor's portfolios. Akre is again the biggest super investor who owns the business, with 10.5% of his portfolio invested in the company. American Tower is a $98 billion market cap that trades just $4 below its 52-week high. American Tower has been one of Akre's long-term winners after he initially bought the company at basically its all-time lows following the telecom and dot-com bubble of the late 90s. In the last decade, however, the company hasn't performed nearly as well and it's underperformed the stock market. Still, as a REIT, most of American Tower's returns come in the form of dividends. Today, they pay a 2.76% dividend yield, and they grew this by 6.5% last year. On top of this, they're a dividend growth stock, increasing their dividends for 12 years in a row. American Tower is again a steady business that in more recent years has continued adding debt. But the company's profits haven't quite kept pace, and this is shown in their lowered returns on capital. American Tower's GF value comes in at $220 per share, which is just around $15 below their current stock price. Today, analysts claim that American Tower is fairly valued, with a $240 target price. The private equity company KKR is Akre's 4th biggest holding. This makes up 12.7% of his portfolio and is owned by 8 super investors, including Lone Pine Capital. This is a stock that's done very well in the past year, and Akre trimmed just slightly in the last quarter. KKR is a $100 billion market cap that's trading just $5 below its 52-week high. This has more than doubled from their lows. Their stock has really taken off since 2020. It crashed in 2022 and has continued to rebound very strongly with the big shift into alternative assets. The numbers of a private equity firm can cause some confusion, and it's tough to really tease these out and make heads or tails of them. Even some of the most highly touted numbers by private equity firms like EBITDA and sales growth aren't quite as stable here as you would want to believe. It's hard to get a clear reading on KKR, but analysts are giving it a $130 target price, which is 10% above today's stock price. Next, we have a stock that doesn't show on Akre's 13Fs. Constellation Software is his 3rd largest holding, and of his total portfolio, it makes up 11.5%. Akre owns the company stock that trades in Canada. They do have an ADR that's owned by 3 US super investors who own this stock. This is led by Sequoia Fund with 7% of their portfolio in the company. Akre also owns Constellation spinoffs over the years. Constellation is the ultimate roll-up and acquisition machine pioneered by its legendary founder Mark Leonard. The company's trading at its all-time highs and it's trading for a PE of more than 100 times and a price-to-sales ratio of 7 times. That's pretty pricey. In recent years, like some of these other businesses, even though they've had steady revenue and profit growth, the company has added on more debt and their returns on capital have plunged because of the additional capital in the business. It's very different from other software companies, but Constellation doesn't like to do anything in the means of share buybacks or shareholder dilution. The quality of Constellation's management and business is well recognized. This is part of why Guru Focus gives it a pretty pricey fair value of just under 4,000 Canadian dollars per share. Moody's is the second biggest stock in Akre's portfolio and it's owned by 13 super investors. Akre is the biggest with a 15.6% position in the company. This is followed by double-digit holdings from Chris Hone and Valley Forge Capital Management. Moody's is also owned by Warren Buffett, who has 3.7% of the portfolio at Berkshire in the company. It's easily been one of his top-performing stocks in the past couple of decades. Today, the credit rating agency trades at its all-time highs, and it's up more than 25 times from its lows during the global financial crisis. Historically, Moody's has been one of the United States' most reliable businesses. In recent years, their growth has continued, but it's been somewhat lumpier. They've also added more debt onto their business, and their returns on capital have again suffered. In more years than not in the past decade, Moody's has actively been buying back their shares. Moody's is also a dividend growth stock, growing these 14 years in a row and paying a modest 0.72% dividend yield. They did grow this by 10% last year. Analysts seem to think the stock may have peaked and have a $464 price target. That's down 3% from their current stock price. And Chuck Akre's biggest stock is, drumroll please, Mastercard. Today, 15.7% of his portfolio is invested in the company, which is owned by 16 super investors. Right up there with Akre are Valley Forge Capital Management, Guy Spear, and Thomas Russo. There's also a holding from Todd Combs over at Berkshire Hathaway. Mastercard's the key competitor with Visa and has a $437 billion market cap. It's trading at its 52-week and all-time highs. Mastercard's absolutely crushed the stock market as a public company since its IPO and in the past decade. As a business, Mastercard fits Akre's mold exactly. It's a very steady and reliable compounder, and it earns significantly above average returns on capital. It also generates a massive amount of free cash flow. In addition to this, for the past decade, Mastercard has steadily bought back shares. And again, Mastercard is a dividend growth stock, growing these 12 years in a row, increasing them by 16% last year, and currently just having a modest 0.54% dividend yield. However, based on a number of valuations, Mastercard may be ahead of itself. This, however, is another case where the company's quality and management is well recognized. That's why Guru Focus says it's fairly valued today, though that may be pretty pricey. When we look at the company's cash flows, these are actually implying around a 45% downside. Cash flows can be lumpy, but the numbers may not lie. Analysts, though, are even more bullish, targeting an 8% upside. These are the 10 biggest stocks in Chuck Akre's portfolio. What surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below.